Hey Baylor fans, this is your call to gear up with Harley-Davidson of Waco. Whether you're hitting the open road or tailgating at McLean Stadium, we've got the ride to match your Bear pride. Check out our wide selection of new and pre-owned motorcycles, visit our service department, or shop all the latest gear and accessories to show off your Baylor spirit and Harley pride. Visit us today and find your freedom on two wheels. Harley-Davidson of Waco, where Baylor fans never ride alone. Visit in-store or at hdwaco.com. Sic Em Bears.
Welcome into the Sic Em Podcast, presented by Harley-Davidson of Waco, HD Waco. We like that. Boy, what a treat we have for you today as we sit down and visit with Baylor Athletics Hall of Famer in the game of life, Pat Nunley. Welcome to you. Welcome to the Sic Em Podcast.
It is my pleasure to be here. You know, if you had told me that we were going to do the rum, I'd have gotten here early. Yeah. I would have gotten a little prepped for that.
Warmed up for it.
Saw you and Jerry do it last night, and I said, I want that. Maybe we can start a broadcast with that.
Well, yes, very good. Harley-Davidson Waco would love that. Yes. So let's do that. Welcome to you. We're glad you're here. It's funny, like you and I have so many conversations, and actually a lot of them are on the air, right? Doing the basketball games, but this is a little bit different. Right. We got cameras here, and this is our Sic Em Podcast, so I think it's going to be fun.
And we're at the Baha Mar.
We are. Maybe you can tell we're not in Waco. No. We're at the Baha Mar in the Bahamas. Baylor basketball playing at this tournament here. Think about the trips that you and I have made with Baylor basketball through the years.
I remember one year, John, going to Alaska.
Which I missed. I have not been to Alaska.
That's right.
Y'all been twice, and I haven't been there.
That's correct. Yeah. And, you know, in fact, that was the first game I ever did play-by-play. And I was a wreck.
Good memories or not so good memories?
Question. Billy Gillespie was on the staff.
Oh, Billy Clyde.
It was Fairbanks, Alaska.
Yeah.
In November, I remember it was 22 below on the thermometer. But, again, just one of thousands, literally thousands of memories that you and I have accumulated over the years.
Bahamas a couple of times, 3 times now, really. You've been to Alaska, Hawaii several times. All over the country, which is great. So really is fun. I love the story how, I think people know you played basketball at Baylor, great career. Love the cap your brother got you. You should be wearing that right now.
I should have.
That's a great cap. It says number 14, your number when you played. But then you're playing and you finish and you're starting Baylor Law School, and Frank Fallon, who we should spend the whole podcast talking about.
I'd love to.
Again, like last week. We should have done more not last week. But Frank says, what to you?
Well, so I am working at First Federal Savings and Loan on Austin Avenue because I graduated in May of '81, starting law school in February of '82. And one day I'm bored as usual because I really was just there for 4 or 5 months, passing the time until I started law school. So I get a call from Frank Fallon, and no doubt who it is on the other line. Pat, this is Frank Fallon, which is my best Frank Fallon.
That's pretty good.
It's inadequate. And, well, sure, Mr. Fallon, how can I help you? And he said, we're starting the Baylor Radio Network. I'm coming over from KWTX, and I would like for you to help me do color on the broadcasts. And much like when you were talking to Jerry, you got the call to go ahead and start doing color commentary for football that fall. I had the same reaction. I thought, it has to be Frank Fallon because nobody can talk like that.
Right.
But this is a joke. Because I had no training, I had never done it. And he said, no, I'll coach you through it and we'll figure it out. But former player, we want to go that route. And I think what really sealed the deal was I was willing to work for free.
Which he didn't mention right off the top. That wasn't in his lead, was it?
Because I'm thinking, why are you calling me?
You're right.
And then in the conversation, I said, Frank, by the way, just curious, no big deal. But what does it pay? He said, well, Pat, doesn't pay anything.
That's
so
great.
I don't think anybody felt like, including me, this was sustainable, that this was going to continue on for a while. But he was just getting it started, and I'm sure they had no budget for it.
Yeah.
But I was elated to do it, wanted to do it, and again, happy to work for free.
And that was when Frank, like you said, had left KWTX Radio and had come to campus. And before that, before you, there was not a color analyst, certainly a regular color analyst, was there?
No. In fact, you mentioned that last night, and I thought, well, I guess that's right. I know that Dave South had done some color with Frank. When I was playing, that was our crew. But coming in, I don't think I had a predecessor, really.
Yeah, not on a regular basis?
No.
Oh, you're a pioneer.
I guess.
That was, Pat, 44 years ago. How about that? You're in your 44th season here at Baylor.
Yeah. Never thought this would continue.
Yeah.
I'm blessed that it has. I love it. I still, John, you're probably this way too. I still, when we start a broadcast, my hands get a little clammy. I'm not nervous. It's the adrenaline. I've never lost that.
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing. It's what is the old get your butterflies to fly in formation. Now, early on, it was real nerves.
Yeah.
But I was able to work through that, and I love it. You and I have talked a lot about the journey.
Yeah.
And what a journey it's
What
been.
a journey.
So I'm just, blessed to be a part of it.
What kind of guidance did Frank give you early on?
Well, it was, I think I've mentioned this previously too, but I remember him saying, your job is to say a lot, but it is to use very few words to do so. And that is some wisdom.
Right.
That is sage advice, and that's not easy to do because you don't have all day. And I remember him saying, the talking you should do typically is after a bucket, the players are exchanging ends. After a bucket, as the other team's bringing it up, you ought to shut it off about halfway up the floor. And so I would be in mid-sentence when the guy stepped on the half-court line, I'm done.
You followed that advice.
And then he would say, you kind of get it. You can keep talking.
Yeah.
But it was that, which was great advice, and it was just very gentle coaching. It was never write this down. It was you might try this. This is how this typically works. And I was a sponge, and I took it all in, and I'll never forget any of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it obviously landed very well. You do have in your possession, the kind of priceless to you and I, and probably to a lot of people, you've got some handwritten notes from Frank about things to include in a broadcast.
Well, Fairbanks, Alaska.
Oh, this was for that.
This was for Fairbanks.
Gotcha.
Because I'm going up there, and I'm afraid of dead air. And I'm thinking I'm just going to talk. I want something to say to avoid dead air. You're the master at it. Frank was a pro at it. Just things you bring in, and I wanted to know what are those things so I can do that and avoid dead air. And he wrote down, I think, John, it's 21 things, and they're in his handwriting. And one of those I'll never forget was, don't criticize the officials. It serves no purpose, and it is unprofessional. And that is so Frank Fallon.
How about that?
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
And for that reason, you and I try to be careful with that. But it was that, there were a number of other things, and it's priceless. I've told you before, it ought to be in the Smithsonian.
It should,
as far as I'm
absolutely.
concerned. Yeah.
At least the Baylor Athletics Hall of Fame.
Should.
For sure, because that's Hall of Fame material to you and I. What a great experience.
What an incredible experience.
Yeah.
And, I talk sometimes to younger folks, I know you do, who are looking to get into this, and I feel like I don't have a lot to offer because I learned on the job.
Yeah.
You just don't do that anymore.
Right.
But the circumstances were such that I could come in, Frank would coach me up, and I could just learn on the job to do it adequately to get Frank's, to get the broadcast going and to get the station going. And again, it just never stopped. I kept re-upping, and it seemed to work out okay, and here we are 44 years later.
Amazing. Yeah. That's great. I want to backtrack a little bit to your time even before Baylor. We saw Tommy Newman at the Baylor-Arkansas game a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Your coach, and really the guy that got you to Baylor, right?
He did. He was a highly sought high school coach. He's probably more highly sought as a coach than I was as a player. But he was the president of the Texas Association of Basketball Coaches, all of that. So every year he would get recruited by colleges to come in. He was an X's and O's guy, the best. And midway through my senior year in high school, Carol Dawson retired or left, and Coach Haller was an assistant, was moved into the interim head coach's role. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the year, they named him the full-time head coach. So there's a vacancy on the staff, and Coach Haller is recruiting Tommy, and he's recruiting me at the same time. And so it just worked out that wherever Tommy decided to go, I was going.
Nice.
There was no doubt in my mind. It didn't matter where it was. Fortunately, it was Baylor, and he had a couple of other offers and thought he was going to go a couple other places, but at the last minute he decided, I'm going to Baylor, and then he tells me, we're going to Baylor.
Yeah, nice.
And I said, great, let's sign up and let's go.
Yeah.
Best decision I ever made.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Come in and really a great career for you, a Hall of Fame career. You're a member of the Baylor Athletics Hall of Fame. But think about the guys that you played with, and I know you have great respect for your teammates, your former teammates, the guys that are your guys to this day.
They are. Those guys that I played with, Chuck Lincoln, Joe Copeland, Chuck Stanley, Ronnie Blake, Charlie Jackson, and I could go on, and here I am struggling because I don't want to leave anybody out, but it could take too long.
Right.
But those guys have been lifelong friends of mine. They are. I got a text from Chuck last night. Mm-hmm. But the two guys, and Terry Teagle he was an NBA guy for many years, and now out of the NBA, he's back in the fold, and we get to spend time with Terry. But you talk about players, Terry and Vinnie Johnson, those are two guys who made really nice careers of the NBA. And I say this, it is the truth. When I saw those guys play and spent not years but months playing with them, that's when I decided I needed to figure out what plan B for my life was.
Right.
Because it was not the NBA. Everybody thinks you're going to the NBA or you're going to make money playing basketball the rest of your life. Well, I saw those guys play and went, don't know what it is, but it ain't that.
That's great. I mean, you mentioned two of the greats really in Baylor basketball history, and you played with both Terry Teagle and Vinnie Johnson. Terry Teagle before the three-point line. Yeah. How about that? What if he had played during that three-point line era?
That's right. And both of those guys would be as good today as they were then.
Yeah.
A lot, the game has changed. The guys are bigger, I think guys are faster. But those two guys, it doesn't matter which era you'd stick them in, they could play.
Yeah.
They could play. I'd just not seen anything like it. I'd not seen an athlete like Terry. I had not seen a baller like Vinnie.
Yeah.
Strong and, learned to play in Brooklyn, New York, out on the playgrounds, and that was just a different style of hoops that I was accustomed to. But it was a great experience, and both those guys are terrific guys, and over the years, for the most part, Terry and I for sure, Vinny not so much because he's in Detroit doing his thing, we've been able to stay in touch.
There was the night, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this on the official Sic Em Podcast. Right. February of 1979, Heart of Texas Coliseum. Baylor versus TCU. The night that you and Vinny combined to score 62. What a night. What a memory.
What a night. Should I tell them the rest of the story?
You can if you'd like.
Probably ought to. Vinny got 50, I got 12.
Well, sure.
But it's 62.
62
you
between the two of you.
You got 62.
Yeah, great night.
And you know where that came from?
No.
The night Wilt Chamberlain scored 100. There was a guy on that team with him who scored 6.
Yeah.
And he always referred to that night as the night that he and Wilt Chamberlain combined for 106.
That's it, which is accurate.
Hey,
yeah,
it all adds up.
We have a lot of fun every year. We don't let that anniversary go by without making mention of the night you and Vinny scored 52.
Well, I
combined to score 62.
cherished that evening, and it was a big night for Vinny. It was.
It's talk about your guys, you know, that you have stayed in touch with through the years. Remember the parade after Baylor basketball won the national championship, and Coach Drew. So Coach Drew, he had the foundation of the program. You guys who had come before lead the parade in downtown Waco. That was so fun to see you guys together.
I tell you, John, it was unbelievable. And it is so Coach Drew.
Yeah.
He was even on the phone calling guys from my era to make sure they felt welcome, and that not only feel welcome, he wanted them there. And to have everybody assembled, we were able to reminisce, but we were there to celebrate a national championship. And what I loved about it was Coach Drew said, you guys were the building blocks. And I never thought about that. My teammates never thought about that, because there was a lot that transpired from then to the national championship. But he just said, you are, whether you recognize it or not. And just to make us feel so, all those guys, because you and I are with the program anyway, but those guys to feel like they belonged, that national championship they had, even just a small part in building, was just, it was, there are really no words for it, for those guys. They all came back and they felt a part of it. It was beautiful.
Yeah. Heart of Texas Coliseum, Farrell Center, now Foster Pavilion.
Yep.
How about that? Quite an
does
arc
that.
there. Yes, I would say. Pretty nice moves. Really, when you move to the Farrell Center, that was a big move, and now Foster Pavilion's the next step.
It is, and it was necessary, and it is unbelievable. In fact, John, I don't know that there's you and I go around the country, I don't know if there's a nicer facility in the country than Foster Pavilion, but it was necessary. There's a bit of an arms race, and we have to have the facilities, and we do, and the commitment from the Fosters and from the university to build that so that we're in the game, and not only in the game, we're ahead of the game in terms of our facilities and getting great players here. But I've got fond memories of the old HOT.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And then, John, you think about the Farrell Center. I tell people that was, during our time in the Farrell Center, it was at times the worst college basketball has to offer, and then it turned into the best that college basketball has to offer. That all happened in the Farrell Center.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
And so here we are now in Foster, and it's as good as it gets.
Yeah. Your pullover you've got has the script Baylor, which is very nice. You had uniforms when you were playing with the script, right?
We did.
And now this year, the team has a new set of gold uniforms that have script Baylor on it. Yours had Bears, script Bears.
We did.
Right? And
we
then
did.
now, how about that kind of a nice throwback homage with the script?
It's a throwback. And isn't it nice of them to honor the 1981 team in that way?
That's it. That's exactly what it is.
Those were our home uniforms.
Yeah.
The uniforms they wore against Arkansas, I think it was. Those were our home uniforms from those. I don't think we did the Sailor Bear, but we did the script.
Right.
And that color, the gold, was typically you wear white at home. We wore that gold all year long. In fact, I think that was our only home uniform. So it got a little rank by the end of the year. But it was nice to see the throwback, and the script is nice. Along with the Sailor Bear, that's a powerful combination.
Nice touch.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very good. How about Coach Drew comes in? I mean, you've been here, we've been here through a number of coaches with varying success, but Coach Drew comes in and, man, things are different, aren't they? Right from the beginning.
Yeah, they were. I remember, John, thinking about that period, and when he came in, we were dysfunctional. We could not get it right. It seemed like the harder we tried, the worse it got. And what he allowed us to do was dream a little bit, because we were so dysfunctional we couldn't dream. And this guy is a dreamer, and we thought it was pie in the sky. I did. At his first press conference, he says, we're going to win a national championship. I went, sure.
Right.
Well, you can't come out of that if you can't dream, if you don't have a vision. And he had a vision that nobody else could see, and over time he just got us bought into that, where we went from hoping it could happen to believing it can happen, and then it happened.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you could take Scott Drew and give him a company, a mid-market company, and say, this company is yours, a company that's struggling. Give it to him for a year, and in a year, he'd have it figured out.
Oh, no question. I agree. Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Right.
So the things, and this has been cool for me and what I do, because I'm in a little bit of that world doing what I do professionally. I see what he does over here and how applicable what he does over here would be in the business world. It's an easy transition. It's people. It's just getting the right people, getting them to perform at the level at which they have to perform. And he's done that time and time again. Yeah, and then he sells them on a vision, and on and on and on. But it's been fun. And
boundless energy to go along with it.
Yeah.
What did Rat tell you one time? Grant McCaslin?
Grant McCaslin.
Yeah.
We're in an airport going somewhere, and of course the flight's delayed. And Coach Drew's not going to sit around. Hey, we got 2 hours, we're going to practice.
Right.
So he finds in the airport this wide open area, and he gets the GAs to tape the floor. So we've got a lane, we've got a 3-point line, and they start walking through stuff, and it may be 10 o'clock at night, for all I know. And Grant McCaslin had come over from Abilene Christian, I think it was.
Yeah, I think.
Anyway, came over, first year on the staff, and he came up to me, we're watching it, I'm just a zombie, we're so tired. He comes up to me and he said, when I came here, I said, the thing that I can promise everybody is that nobody will outwork me. Nobody will work harder than I work. He said, I was wrong. He said, that guy outworks everybody.
Yeah.
And you know Grant McCaslin, he's a worker.
Sure.
And the job he's doing at Texas Tech is really off the charts good.
Yeah.
But for Grant McCaslin to say that about Scott, that makes the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Some of the other coaches that have come through here, Coach Drew's coaching tree now is getting to be very widespread, isn't it?
It is. And you and I both knew when those guys were on staff, they were headed, when they headed out, they were going to be very successful. And that's been the case. Paul Mills, Jerome Tang, John Jacobs, Alvin Brooks. In fact, I sent Coach Jacobs a text the other day. I just was thinking about him and saw their record and heard a post-game press conference that he did and sent him a note, and he immediately fired back. And so those guys they're off to other things, but I don't think those guys will ever forget their experiences at Baylor.
Yeah.
But what great assistant coaches we've had here, and they've proven that as they've moved on into other head coaching roles now. But we'll never forget them. They were here long enough for us to have built relationships with them that I think will sustain over time.
They will, forever. I'd add Matt Driscoll to that, too.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, was the first one who left off the original staff. And isn't it great that you and I have been here this long, that we have those relationships? We played Tarleton recently.
Right.
Billy Clyde Gillespie was on Harry Miller's staff. And you and I are, catching up with Billy Clyde. And that goes way back. But isn't that great to have those long-standing working relationships?
It is. And I think, John, it's a testament to this program that when you come here, you will build relationships, because that's what this is all about. And it really doesn't matter. And what I love about it too is it's GAs, it's managers. It doesn't matter what role you play or how experienced or inexperienced you are. You come here, you're going to build relationships. They're great at that. And that's one of the reasons you and I, for me for sure, have stayed around all these years.
Oh, sure.
It's a different culture, and it's one that you can buy into. And when we're not a part of it, we miss it. I know I do. It's always refreshing when the season starts. I'm going, oh boy, we get to hang out with these guys again.
True.
And the new coaching staff, those guys that have moved in, have picked up right where the others have left off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Our team, you and me and Bob Baker for the most part, our engineer. Bob's a big part of our team.
Oh, yeah.
Like we talked about at the beginning, we've been a lot of places. What do people ask you a lot? Where's your favorite place to go, or what's the best place you've ever broadcast from? Do you get that sometimes?
I do. I think I'd have to chew on that a little bit, but I love Allen Fieldhouse.
Yeah.
It's just historic. It's where the game was invented. You drive in and there's Naismith Drive that takes you up to Allen Fieldhouse. It's old, it's historic, it's like a museum. There's 16,000 people there. I think that on the road, I think that's probably the place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've got a few bucket lists. Haven't been to Duke. I'd like to do a game there one of these days, and I think it'll happen.
Yeah.
But I think that's the one that stands out to me.
Definitely.
Yeah.
How about the national championship season? Even leading up to that, every year, the last few years, Coach Drew has the program at the point where they are going to be in the NCAA tournament, and it's just a matter of how far they go in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
How about that, to have that consistency of success under Coach Drew?
And it's hard to do, and he's done it. He's the picture of consistency. It's funny. The year before they won the national championship, I'm having breakfast or something with Coach Tang, and he's talking about these guys. It may have been 2 years before. It was the year before Maceo and Davion and those guys became eligible. And I remember him saying, we are going to win a national championship. And I had not seen those two guys play much, but he said, with these guys, we are going to win a national championship. And I remember thinking, he's not kidding. We're going to do this. And it happened. But it was because we were able to bring those guys in, work with them, get them into the culture, have them buy into the culture. And they were the right guys, too. But so the consistency, I think, leading up to the national championship came from a culture where we could do that. Now that's gone a little bit because of NIL and the transfer portal. I'm just glad that he built that and established that so that Baylor now has a brand that would invite other players like Norchad Omier and Jeremy Roach and others. I've been at Duke, I've been at Miami, I've been to Final Fours. I want to play for Baylor. And had he not been able to establish that through the national championship, we might struggle a little bit in the new dawn of new age of college athletics. And I think that's going to help us survive all this.
Yeah. The COVID year when the tournament was shut down, we were in Kansas City waiting to play in the Big 12 tournament, and all of a sudden, well, not sure what time this game's going to be. Well, we're not going to play. Well, the season's over, just like that.
Like that.
Wasn't that amazing?
It was. And that was the team that Coach Tang said, we're going to win a national championship. It was that team, and we very well could have. And then coming back the next year. And I remember, John, it was, are they coming back?
Yeah, right,
will those guys be back?
Yeah.
Well, they all came back, and that's when we thought this is going to be something really special.
Yeah.
There was no doubt.
Going through that COVID year affected our travel somewhat.
Yeah.
We did a couple games remotely. One of the games we did remotely ended up being the game where they clinched the Big 12 championship, the win at West Virginia. Gosh, even though we weren't there, what a great memory that is.
What a great memory. We did that from McLean Stadium.
Yes.
And here's another story for you. I don't know that I've ever told you this.
Oh, good.
I'm thinking, okay, so I pull into McLean Stadium, and I'm thinking, we're going to win it. Like, we're going to, and that was our first Big 12 championship.
Yeah.
But I get out of the car thinking, we're going to win this thing. And I'm thinking about the championship, nothing else. I leave my car on. It's running.
No.
For 4 hours.
No way.
Never turned it off.
Really?
Did the game, finished it. You and I are hugging, we're crying, And I walked down to my car, and it's running.
Oh, my gosh.
First of all, it's still got gas in it. Second of all, I mean, it's there. Nobody picked it up and took it. You just drove it off. So there you go.
Running the whole time.
The whole time.
That is so wild.
That's how distracted I was, and how excited I was about getting up there, because that was an overtime game. But I had a feeling we were going to win it right then and there, and if we did, we're Big 12 champs.
I would say not distracted. I would say focused. You were focused on your job.
That's a better word.
Remember Eric Sherrow? He came. He wanted to be there.
Yeah.
Couldn't be in West Virginia. He wanted to be with not necessarily us, but somebody, some Baylor people.
Yeah.
Because I think he felt the same way.
He did.
That you did.
Yeah. It was a special night.
Year of the national championship continued in the bubble. Travel was, kind of during the year, and the team from Kansas City, Big 12 tournament on, they were in the bubble. You and I were we're outside the bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of good news, bad news. We ate at some nice places in
did.
Indianapolis that the team didn't get to.
Yeah.
And we were separated from the team. I hated that.
Yeah.
But what was that entire experience like, that NCAA tournament?
Well, it was different. Everything was different. I remember looking out the window in Indianapolis, and there are no cars.
Yeah.
It was like 9 o'clock in the morning, and there's nobody out there. I do remember, though, losing early in the in the Big 12 tournament.
Mm-hmm.
They were able to, and this was a godsend looking back, they were able to go straight to Indianapolis and practice.
Yeah.
Because they had been bitten by COVID as well, and they had not practiced. That gave them time to work on fundamentals, get back to basics, which had a lot to do with them winning it all. But I remember it was surreal. I couldn't remember the freedom to leave.
Yeah.
Just to leave. And I had to walk to a drugstore or something to pick up, I don't know what it was, but I'm walking back and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to give everybody COVID. But everywhere you went, you thought, I may come down with this stuff and I'm going to cost us a national championship. It was bizarre. But the cool thing is, maybe the good thing is, the two best teams in the country played for the national championship. There was no doubt about that. And it wasn't like COVID decimated the field of 64 or 68, right, whatever it was. We lost one team, as I recall. So we had the best teams in the country playing. It was a little bit odd, but at the end of the day, you had the very best playing for all the marbles. Yeah.
What a great experience. And I think, not to put words in your mouth, but I think the best part about that for you and I was being there, but for Coach Drew, just so happy for Coach Drew and his vision and the culture of joy. Yeah. That was the best part of that.
It was the best part. Just to see that all the hard work paid off. And I remember winning it, and I hearkened back to his press conference where he said, we're going to go to a Final Four and we're going to win a national championship. And I thought, well, son of a gun. He did it. He did it. And I thought, too, this is the best team in the country. There was no doubt.
Right.
And it really wasn't that close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did the math. I did a little homework going back to 81, 82. Mm-hmm. You've missed a few games along the way, but that's negligible.
Right.
I've got you at 1,325 Baylor basketball games.
Wow.
How about that as we play here in the Bahamas this week? 1,325. Yeah.
And you've done how many consecutive football
That's
games?
not the point. We'll
talk about that later.
You are 1,325. Some very memorable.
Yep.
Some not so memorable.
Not
some
so
we've
memorable.
wiped from our
Right.
from the history of
As
our
a
minds.
coping mechanism.
Yes, right. But that is so cool, and you are such a great ambassador for Baylor and Baylor basketball. You are, I tell people this, you're the gold standard for what we look for in our Baylor broadcast. You're a Baylor guy, you know Baylor, you played here, you're very articulate, and when we look for color analysts, when we need that, Pat Nunley's the gold standard.
Well, you might ought to raise the bar a little higher.
No, it can't be raised.
Well, having said that, and I appreciate that, I really do, I don't think about that. I want to do a great job because we love it, and we just want to do a great job. But I've thought about this too, and I mentioned this at the Hall of Fame thing. Baylor athletics is a big window through which people see Baylor. And you and I have been around Baylor long enough to know the standard of excellence is high. And so I feel that. Mm-hmm. And it's not lost on us that we've got to do a great job. We've got to put Baylor's best foot forward. If we don't, we're not honoring Baylor. And we want to be worthy of Baylor. That's really been what's driving me. And I know you feel exactly the same way. But at the end of the day, it's a blast.
Yeah.
we cut up and we laugh.
We do have fun.
We do have fun.
And congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Many great accomplishments, but that mindset is what makes you as good as you are and makes you the perfect person for this. So can't tell you how much I enjoy working with you and have through the years, and hopefully we've been working together for 31 years, so hopefully we can do that for a few more.
That 1,325 thing.
About that.
That never even occurred to me.
There you go.
If you'd asked me to guess, I would have guessed half that. But
It's a lot of years.
Yeah, it's a lot of years.
A lot of years.
Give or take a few.
I speak for a lot of people when I say we appreciate you.
Thank you.
And the way you do represent Baylor and represent Baylor basketball. And Coach Drew, if he'd walk up now, what would be the first thing he'd say? Something about fishing. Right?
Yeah, he showed me a fishing picture yesterday. When I saw we got on the plane, he whipped it out. And yeah, no, we've got that thing going on.
That's
We're
great.
going to do that, yeah.
We appreciate you very much. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thanks.
Appreciate this whole experience. I really do.
It is a great experience. Pat Nunley, our guest on the Sic Em Podcast, presented by Harley Davidson of Waco. That's right. Thanks to Pat Nunley, and thanks to you for being with us on the Sic Em Podcast.